Well, good morning, everyone, and good morning to our folks online. And for those of you who are in the room, it's a beautiful, intimate space that we have here this morning. My name is Mark Chase. I'm one of the associate rectors here at All Saints Church. My pronouns are he, him, and I have the honor and privilege of hosting this morning's forum. And y'all, let me just tell you, for the folks in this room and for the folks watching online, we are in for a treat this morning. We have truly one of the remarkable individuals in the county and city and area of Los Angeles when it pertains to social progress and advocacy, specifically for youth and foster youth and charity. Chandler-Cole, y'all. She is absolutely incredible. So I'm so excited for our time this morning. Charity, I'm going to read your bio, but first let's just ground ourselves in prayer, and then I'm going to read Charity's bio, and we'll get started. Holy God, thank you for this space. As we take a deep breath in, God, for those of us for whom that deep breath might be the only deep breath we take today, God, would you multiply it? God, thank you for this space. Thank you for Charity Chandler-Cole. Thank you for this Advent season that reminds us that all hope is not lost, that reminds us that joy is still attainable, that reminds us that love is still at the center and that peace is still possible. So, Holy Spirit, would you fill this room and our conversation this morning? In Christ's name, amen. Amen. All right. I'm going to read Charity's bio here. Listen to this. Charity Chandler-Cole is a multifaceted individual with a profound commitment to effecting positive change in our society. As an accomplished author, scholar, activist, and national child welfare advocate, she has dedicated her life to uplifting youth impacted by the foster care and juvenile justice systems. Born and raised in the heart of Los Angeles, Charity experienced firsthand the challenges of these systems, driving her to devote over a decade to reshaping social structures, policies, and systems that have disproportionately oppressed foster youth and vulnerable communities. At the helm of CASA of Los Angeles, court-appointed special advocates, Charity leads an organization that tirelessly advocates for the rights and well-being of these young individuals. Her journey from adversity to empowerment serves as a beacon of hope and resilience, encapsulated by her inspiring mantra, "If Charity can do it, then so can you." Charity is resolute in her mission to redefine the narrative and outcomes for those impacted by the system. She leverages her various platforms to engage, educate, develop, and empower people from all walks of life, fostering change agents, visionaries, and successful contributors to society, irrespective of their upbringing or past. In addition to her pivotal role at CASA of Los Angeles, Charity holds influential positions that further amplify her impact. Notably, she serves as the vice chair of the Los Angeles County Commission for Children and Families, where she also co-chairs the Racial Justice Committee. She is an invaluable member of the African American Advisory Board to District Attorney George Gascon, and plays a crucial role on the California mandated reporting to community supporting task force, where she co-chairs the Policy and Practice Reforms Subcommittee. What I'm hearing is you're not busy at all. That's what I'm hearing. Even amidst her demanding advocacy work, Charity, and this is be updated, is not diligently pursuing her doctorate degree in educational leadership for social justice at her alma mater, Loyola Marymount University. Charity holds a doctorate degree in educational leadership for social justice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Beyond her professional endeavors, she is a loving wife and devoted mother to 4 beautiful children. Charity Chandler-Cole's life story is an embodiment of resilience, hope, and the unwavering belief that positive change is attainable for all. Her unwavering dedication and diverse roles in advocacy and academia continue to make a profound impact on the lives of countless individuals and communities. Everyone, Dr. Charity Chandler-Cole.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, I'm curious, Charity, and thank you so much for being here with us, y'all. Charity was with us a few months ago at a foster care project event, and we thought we just had to have her back on a Sunday morning. So thank you for being here with us again. And I'm curious, as you hear your bio read, is there anything about it that you're still in awe of yourself that you never thought would be true about Charity?
Oh my gosh, and after you said first off, I am so happy to be here with you all. Yes, thank you for having me back and with you this morning. I don't know, it just seems unreal when I hear someone read my bio, but I think the doctorate for me, being Dr. Charity Chandler-Cole now, is just so symbolic because we know that less than 6% of our young people that, only 0.5% of people that are in high school, graduate high school, and less than 6% of us hold any type of degree, from associate degree to bachelor's degree. And there's really no data on graduate degree holders, from master's degree and doctorate degree. There's really nothing there. So for me, this is just showing that despite the horrible statistics that are out there, that we have the ability to change our future and shape what we want to be and what we want to do. So I'm still pinching myself. So when people are like, Dr. Charity Chandler-Cole, I'm like, who are you talking to? Me? So because it just seems unreal, but for me, it just, I purposefully created the person you see today. I had a goal and a vision to prove everyone that ever doubted me and told me I would never amount to anything wrong. And so because I started from nowhere, I decided to be someone wonderful, something grand and inspiring so that other people can. And because of my journey, which you'll hear about, people like me aren't supposed to graduate high school, get any type of college degree. Statistically, I'm supposed to be dead, in jail, or on welfare with 6 kids and having experienced extraordinary abuse and violence and poverty. So being that I purposefully changed that statistic and decided not to be that stereotype, it's profound. But I never really had time to stop and realize it was happening. Yeah. So for me, it's just, thank you, God. Thank you, Charity. Thank you, self. Thank you for believing that, I was capable of doing this. And I just got to, take some time to think, I thank God all the time, but I never thank myself. So I just need to take some time to thank myself for sticking with it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Something that you said that I don't want to get lost in the shuffle. You said, I made a decision to be wonderful. I made a decision to be wonderful. And the journey of that decision to be wonderful is in this book, because in addition to being doctor, you're also author, Charity Chandler-Cole. The book is Stranger Danger, and y'all, this is an incredible book. It practically reads itself. You're so vulnerable in this book, and it accomplishes something that is so rare in that it is autobiographical, but that it also tells the narrative and the stories of how systems and forces beyond any individual's control oppress and marginalize, right? So it captures your individual story, and it also tells the story of oppressive systems and forces. So a lot went into this incredible book. So I'm curious, what was the moment that said to you, I've got to write my story. I've got to write about this decision to be wonderful. Was there a moment like that for you?
There were many moments, but I've actually been writing this book for over 10 years. But I was always on chapter 1, page 1 for 10 years. Because I could never get past those first few sentences, and it was so hard to even start to figure out how I would even structure a book about my life and my journey and the hardships. But it was even harder talking about my journey and the pain and the trauma. And so when I was in India, right before COVID hit, the end of 2019, I went to study with Tibetan monks in Dharamsala, and the Dalai Lama, and focus on universal ethics. And at that moment, someone that was on the trip with us said, Charity, how about you just write the book as a novel, as if you're talking about someone else? Because it was so hard to talk about my trauma and my pain. And then when I, at that moment, I decided, okay, charity, I'm just going to write it, I'm going to get it out. But what really prompted it was that I was experiencing so many young people still working in this work that were going through the same things I went through 15 years ago, 18 years ago, and nothing was changing. And then, now coming to CASA, and then of course COVID happened, so there was no writing books. I was working in healthcare, I was responding to the crisis, but then when I started working at CASA, I was still seeing the same issues, and being a commissioner and still seeing the same issues. But then we were individualizing all of the issues. It was always an issue of that young person or that parent or that person who did something wrong. And we never, ever put the system on trial.
Say that one more time.
We never put the system on trial.
Wow.
Even when Gabriel Fernandez died, his parents were on trial, the social workers were on trial, the teacher, everyone else. But we never looked at the oppressive laws and policies and conditions that allow for these things to happen. We never looked at the unnecessary warehousing of children into our systems that don't need to be there. And just to drop some statistics, 88% of the kids that are in our child welfare system now are there because of neglect that oftentimes stems from poverty. Only 12% of the kids in our system are actually there because of abuse. So imagine if we addressed poverty and we addressed systemic issues and we helped families and supported families. Kids like Gabriel Fernandez wouldn't fall through the cracks. And there's so many other kids that are actually being abused and actually need help that we're unable to see because we're overburdened. Our system is overwhelmed with criminalizing and punishing poor families. And so for me, I wanted to, through my story, highlight the pain and horror and trauma that I experienced while in the system, but also make it an issue of the system. Even though the probation officers and social workers and attorneys and everyone else failed to see me and hear me and understand me and truly wanted to help and support me, they were people that were recruited to do a job, to implement a policy, to follow a rule. But they're the ones that often get blamed. And so I wanted to purposely tie my trauma and my horror and my pain to the system, because that's where we're going to start to identify opportunities for a real systemic change.
Wow. Can we give it up for that? That was... You talk about we never put the system on trial. As the executive director for CASA, that stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate, I want to talk about this section in your book where you were on trial and where you get that sentence of 5 months to a juvenile detention facility. Is there anything that you would go back and say to 16-year-old Charity in that moment, the 16-year-old Charity that deserved advocacy but didn't get it? What would you say to 16-year-old Charity as you sit here now? How would you advocate for her?
It's hard to unpack that. I just want to give you all some context. So I ended up in the system first because through the criminal justice route. So I was incarcerated because I got caught stealing a pack of Fruit of the Loom underwear for my little sister. And instead of the police officers, anyone asking me what I needed or how I could support or even why I was stealing underwear, we would have been able to really address the poverty my family was experiencing. But instead, I was handcuffed and escorted through the store, humiliated and demeaned, and I wasn't seen as a child in need of saving and support. As a Black girl and woman, we are over-adultified, we're over-sexualized, and I wasn't seen as someone needing saving. I was punished because of poverty and put in the backseat of a hard police car, handcuffs behind my back as if I held up Ross with a Smith & Wesson. All I did was stuff a pack of underwear in my clothes, but I was literally treated like a criminal and processed, mug shots, had to remove my hair ties and shoestrings, and, that in and of itself was demeaning, but it was a way for them, I found out afterwards that, we do that so you don't hang yourself after when you're in jail, and I was wondering, why would I want to do such a thing? And I found out later why people would want to do such a thing. And throughout that whole process, no one stopped to see me. No one stopped to just ask me, how can we help? No one asked, why couldn't your mom come to the store and pick you up? My mother was on welfare, had just got a job through the Welfare to Work program, and her even leaving her job to come pick me up from the store would have cost her job. And she had 5 other children to feed, but no one considered that. We were so used to and immune, it was like a reflex to someone commits a crime, we punish them, we incarcerate them. And so as a result, I just had a very horrific experiences, and then I started to believe and internalize this as if, okay, Charity, you are bad. You did do something wrong. You deserve to be treated how you're treated because you knew better. I was raised to not steal. I grew up in the church. I was raised to not do these things. But when you are forced to survive, you really don't think about any of those things because you're in a state of surviving. No kid wakes up and say, oh, let me go steal a pack of underwear today. Let me go and commit a crime. Let me go sell drugs or even use drugs. No one wakes up wanting to do those things. But the adults that have all the answers and knew everything didn't think to ask me why. And so I internalized that and punished myself. And if I had the opportunity to go back, I would tell her that you were surviving. You did everything you needed to do to survive, to help your siblings survive. And I would tell her to forgive herself. I would tell her to stay strong because the words that are going to be, coming at her to attack her and to undermine her and to want her to commit suicide and give up and, succumb to failure, defeat, and shame, that these are words that are going to be used to make you stronger, make you wiser, and to give you the strength you need to ultimately advocate for other kids, because I gave up many times through that. I am surprised I am where I am today, but I would tell her that she's worthy and that she's loved and that what she's about to go through is necessary to a degree for her to become the person she's ultimately going to be.
So much of what you said reminds me of a passage in the book that I want to read and just have you respond to. And then y'all can get a flavor for how incredible and powerful this book is, and you write so vulnerably in it. So thank you for being so vulnerable with your story. So this is page 51. And the context of this is you're just getting your first phone call from your mother after being inside the juvenile detention facility for several weeks. It's the first time you and your mother has spoken. It's the first time she's accepted one of your phone calls and kind of shown up for you, and this is the conversation that you're having. She says this, Mom, I whimpered like a child begging to be taken off punishment. I am so sorry. I'll never steal again, I promise. I cried. Mom, you know I'm a good kid. You know I try my best to help our family. You know I'm always there for you when you need me. You can't let them do this to me. And she says, Charity, you made your bed. Now you have to lay in it. I can't visit you. I can't risk losing my job. You chose this path, and these are the consequences, she stated. And this is the part I want us all to hear. And you say, chose? I shouted, chose? I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to be poor. I didn't choose to be in this family. I didn't choose to live in that awful neighborhood. You chose that for us. I screamed angrily, now foaming at the mouth like a real super predator. How could she say that? How could she dare think that I wanted any of this mess? I didn't wake up one day wanting to sell drugs or be in a gang or have to succumb to stuffing a $4 pack of underwear and $8 t-shirt in my pants. No one wakes up wanting to do any of that. If the choice were mine, I would be on an island reading The Babysitter's Club, Judy Blume, or my favorite American Girl books. If the choice were mine, I would be swimming, laughing, playing, and enjoying my favorite fruits while relaxing under the sun, like the cherries, mangoes, and pomegranates that we could never afford but got to taste on occasion. Why the hell couldn't adults who knew everything understand that? We don't have the luxury of choosing our lives. Our lives choose us. And if the adults aren't able to protect us from it, we either survive it or we don't. Can you talk a little bit about that passage? Because there's so much in there, and I think there's so much in there that goes into some misunderstandings about youth in the system that you alluded to earlier.
Yeah, I think we have and I touched on it a little earlier, we have a system that criminalizes and punishes youth. I use the word super predator throughout because that's the term that was used to justify the punishment and criminalization of young people, specifically Black and brown and poor young people. And I wanted to use that as a play on words to really show that we're not super predators, and that our system creates super predators by putting us into these punitive environments where we are forced to literally not just survive the system, but survive each other. Because we're told, even in the system, that these other kids are bad, or to watch out for this other kid, or not hang out with this other kid. And it literally breeds an environment where you're, on defense all the time, you're watchful all the time, or in my case, let me be the first to strike so that they won't bother me or bully me or pretend to be crazy. That was my thing, so that people wouldn't bother me. And then you come out of that even worse. And then you go out into the world after experiencing everything you experience while in the system, being told all the time by the adults that you're worthless, you're never going to amount to anything. And so when you do get out, you go out and you say, well, there's no hope for me anyway. Let me continue behavior or start new behavior or find places where I can be loved. Because during that time, and what people don't realize is that relationship with the parent is now being severed. That trust is being lost with that parent. Young people are realizing that their parents have absolutely no power and control in this situation. And we resent our parents for that because we don't have the means to get attorneys or to get out or bail out. But then even the parents in our lives, we have been so conditioned to, again, making everything an individual problem, that for parents, because there's a level of shame there, that my child is acting out or my child has engaged in something, because our society shames the parent for the child's behavior, it's easy to put the blame on the child, as if this was your problem, you made this decision, as if they not only were a part of a larger ecosystem that perpetuated harm, but realizing now as an adult that my mom literally did the best with what she had. Yeah. I didn't know that as a child. Literally fighting her own demons, fighting oppression, fighting racism, and that she wouldn't have wanted us to be in those environments either. She wouldn't have wanted us to be experiencing poverty in the way we were experiencing it either. But we have been conditioned to just find someone else to place blame to. It's just like a reflex. And so by default, our society just criminalizes us. They look at children as if they have the mental capacity to make the right decisions all the time. And as a mom to 4 kids, from 7 to 18, I realize that no matter how great of a parent I am, my children are going to make their own decisions, period. And they are going to have different types of influences in their lives that are going to shape, the decisions they make, and that every child is different. But in our system, we apply a one-size-fits-all solution to every single child. This is how you need to act. This is how you need to behave. We're going to ask you no questions about it to remedy it or support it. We're just going to punish and criminalize you and throw the book at you, and then expect you to come out and be a productive agent of society. Because we pretend that that rehabilitation is actually happening in the system, and it's not. It's punishment, criminalization, release, catch you back, put you back in, and start all over again. And it's literally preparing that young person for adult incarceration. And we actually rely on young people. And if you really dig deep, look at our budgets, look at our systems, look at our policies, they rely on young people to continue in this cycle of imprisonment and incarceration and punishment so that we can justify why we need funding for prisons, and then justify why we down the line are going to need funding for homelessness and to address mental health support, when if we focus on these babies now, if we actually wrap our arms around these young people and care for them and love them and give them the support that they need and ask them, most importantly, what they need, not trying to impose what we feel they need on them, we can literally address every single issue our society is facing. But we don't want to start there, and we have to ask ourselves why.
Ooh, okay, so I'm hearing a Sunday morning preacher. I don't know about y'all. Okay, so everything you just said, I could read excerpts from this book just all day. But I want to read an excerpt because something you just said, because I don't think people understand, because I was a child care counselor in the system for several years. I worked in a couple different group homes, and the way children are institutionalized in group homes for further institutionalization. And so you write so well about that on page 86. I want to read this excerpt, just have you interact with it. You say this, after what seemed like a long ride due to LA traffic, we could all relate to that, we finally arrived at a massive, dingy cream building with burgundy brownish colors. Now, the context of this is you're entering into your first foster care placement with brown burgundy doors, shingles and trim in an area known as Lincoln Heights. I didn't arrive at the cute little house with the white picket fence I had imagined, or a nice family standing in the doorway wearing their church clothes and big fake smiles. I walked into what felt like a school building dressed in high ceilings and walkways lined with doors, many doors, that led to either an office or someone's bedroom. I was checked in and processed, similar to how I was at juvie, except I wasn't told to strip naked and given a uniform that signified my confinement. I was instead given a list of rules to follow, warnings of what would happen if I didn't follow them, and told with enthusiasm that I had a $100 clothing allowance and would be taking shopping later that day. Yippee. This place reminded me of juvenile hall. It felt like an institution, a school, a church, a complex of sorts, but definitely not a home. Instead of COs dressed like cops and carrying pepper spray, metal rings packed with keys and handcuffs, there were 20 plus staff who wore regular clothes, had little notepads to document our every move, and kept track of who was on the floor, similar to a teacher with an attendance list. I wanted to read that excerpt because I don't think people often grasp that the juvenile justice system and the foster care system are really one system that reinforce each other. Can you talk a little bit about how those two systems interplay with one another?
Yeah, where they're both benevolently disguised as protection and safety. And so I ended up in the group home because my mother couldn't pick me up. There was no one there to pick me up when I got out of juvenile hall. And my mother at this point, like many mothers, when they are helpless and they're giving up, and mind you, my mother had a divorce. She was raising 6 kids on her own as a single mom. She had just beat breast cancer, and her breast cancer brought on various mental health issues that became undiagnosed, and she was working and exhausted and tired and was doing so much on her own that it was easier for her to just say, and mind you, she was, and I found out afterwards that she was having to respond to many mandated reporting, which is funny because I'm helping to lead that work now, and I found out that my mom had so many interactions with social workers and other folks because of teachers and other folks that she just had laundry lists of requirements that she had to adhere to, parenting classes, drug tests. My mother never did drugs. She didn't even smoke cigarettes. She didn't do anything, but she had to, travel from one side of town to the other to do all these things to prove she was a fit mother. One time, we would sleep in the car while she, rode the shuttle at LAX. We didn't have a babysitter. So any little thing she did to try to help our family survive, she was punished for and seen as an unfit mom. And when that happens, you get so exhausted by the system telling you you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, that sometimes it's just easier to say, you know what, then you raise them. You raise this child. Since you think you can do a better job of raising my child, raise them. And that's what they did. They gladly didn't even question it, didn't even try to offer support, gladly took me away and put me in a group home that was getting $5,600 a month, which was 3+ times my mother's salary, to care for me. And that would have addressed so much of the poverty and things we were experiencing, and processed me, sent me on my way. And and the good thing is they didn't really they didn't try to pretend to make me think I was going somewhere glamorous, that I was going to, receive all this love and support and happiness. No one even really talked to me about, I wasn't even told where we were going. That's why I had this whole imagination of, okay, this is what a group home looks like. Like, this is what a foster home looks like. I'm gonna go to a family, I'm gonna have another opportunity. And I didn't get that, because we are just numbers on a paper. And if we're lucky enough, we're a last name on a paper. We could at least be identified as something, somebody, someone. But it was so institutionalized and structured that there was no space for children to be seen and supported and loved. And the programs we did get while in the system, the counseling, the whatever it was all pilots. We were all being tested. We were all being used for research or to inform some new initiative that the county wanted to have or the city wanted to have. And we were just like pet projects. And sometimes they would last a month or 2 months or 3 months. And they would come in and force us to tell stories about our lives, force us to talk about our trauma and unpack our trauma. And then they would leave with that wound wide open. There was no protocol in the end to let's close it back, close the wound back, give you tools to support you through that trauma that we just exploited through this system. And so we were literally just shuffled in as lab rats. They got a big check for us being there. We got a $100 clothing allowance, out of the $5,600 that they used to literally incarcerate us by another name. But there was no love and hope and support. And as a result, the people that thought they could do a better job of parenting me than my own mom, who couldn't control this child, I experienced being sexually exploited while in that group home. I experienced being trafficked. I, had access to drugs in that group home through people that worked there. A lot of the young people, it was a breeding ground for pimps and for young girls to come in and recruit new girls, to be exploited. And no one was watching. I didn't even know what CASA was at that time. There's not enough CASA volunteers to show up to support every child in the system. And I say now that had I had a CASA, everything I experienced in the system probably wouldn't happen, because if I just had that one person in my life showing up for me, and if the people that work there knew that, her CASA or somebody that loves her is going to be here every month checking on her, I probably wouldn't experience the things I experienced. But because so many of us have no one there watching us or showing up for us or going to be there asking questions or checking in, we're so vulnerable. We're so vulnerable. And as a result, whether it's people that work in the system or people that are external, they're able to use us and abuse us, and no one questions it. And that group home actually was shut down because we also weren't going to school. I was there for 12th grade and had to do my whole 12th grade over while pregnant with my son at 18 years old. We weren't being educated. There were no real case plans for us. And while I was doing research for my book, I came across an audit that was done during the year I was there that, I literally broke down crying in the bathroom. And my husband's like, "What happened? What's wrong?" And I'm like, "This report proves that I'm not crazy. It proves that I wasn't lying about my experience." And no, it didn't talk about the sex trafficking and the sex exploitation, but it showed that we weren't being educated. It showed that we weren't being fed properly. It showed that the building was dilapidated, that there were, the windows were boarded up, and just the conditions. And, for that report to exist is really, gave me the strength I needed to continue writing this book, because it's like, who's gonna believe you? Yeah. Who's gonna believe you?
Yeah. Wow. Let's just take a deep breath there.
I can share that audit report if whoever wants to see it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I gotta I hope you know this, and I think you already know this, but you're the right person for this job for so many reasons as the executive director of CASA. And one of the reasons I say that is because I think throughout this book and throughout much of what you're sharing in this space, the message that I hear loud and clear, and the way I translate it is, y'all, there's nothing wrong with Black people. There's nothing wrong with Black people. And I think for generations in America, white supremacy has set out to prove that, whether it's biological, pathological, maybe it's social, maybe it's cultural. And Resmaa Menakem, CSW and the author, puts it this way, nothing's wrong with us, but something happened to us, and something is happening to us. And you capture that so well. So I believe you're the right person for that job, because not everyone in those positions sees the systemic forces that are pressing down and marginalizing folks, and not everyone brings those informed solutions because of that analysis. So I want to ask about that work that you're doing, because everything that went into this book and everything you're sharing now, you've made a decision to be wonderful and to resist that by leading the CASA Los Angeles. So can you talk about how that work is resisting and combating everything that we've been talking about this morning?
Okay, I'm doing a time.
How much time
check,
we
so
got? Right. And then we'll open it up to the
minutes,
audience after.
Because I want to give you a little bit of context too. So when I was approached by the former CEO to lead CASA, my response was no. One, I didn't know what CASA was, and then when I did my research, I learned that CASA was rooted in white saviorism. And I didn't want to be a part of an organization that, even well-intended or not, and CASA has done a lot of great work despite, but that we're coming in from a place to save these poor children from their communities and their parents and themselves, and they weren't centering children. And by centering, it means let me learn about you, let me learn about the community that you're coming from, the context that brought your family in this situation, and how do I help support it? And so when I went through the process and, met with the board of directors, I said, and this was the first time ever that I went into a job saying that I'm not going to just get in and then try to change things after and reveal the activist that I am, but I'm going to come in from day one and say, this is what I plan to do. I'm going to shake things up. I'm here to transform this organization to be so much more than what it is, and realize the positionality and platform they have with the courts to do real systems change work. Are you ready? And in theory, they were. In practice, I just scared the heck out of everybody. They're like, oh, who did we hire? What did we do? And they can't back out of it because, I'm the first Black person ever, first person of color ever to lead CASA LA, first person with lived experience. And so it just wouldn't be a good headline, and they know it if they're watching. So it was a good opportunity for me to say, I'm going to continue doing the powerful and amazing one-on-one advocacy that CASA already does, but we're going to flip it and say that this whole best interest of the child notion that we have, you can't really provide and support the best interest of the child if you're not supporting the best interest of the family and the parents. We can't say this child needs to go into a certain environment or have a certain placement, a certain opportunity, if we're not making sure the parents are wrapped in the resources and support they need to thrive for that child. And so now we're leveraging our platform in our court reports and the work that we do to really humanize the experience of the families, to ask the right questions, to center the child and their needs differently. And we've launched our first ever prevention program because we have the positionality with the courts to not just respond to children being in the system, but to stop the intergenerational cycle of system involvement in the system. 54% of kids in the system that become parents themselves, like myself, 54% of their children will end up in the system. Wow. That is a terrifying statistic. And we interact with these young people, these non-minor dependents and transition age youth who are parents. We have the opportunity to prevent that baby from going into the system. And so now we're doing that. And so I'm so proud and happy to be at CASA, but we are up against the wall. Volunteerism is down. We don't have enough people showing up for this extraordinary role to support young people in the foster care system. And so we need help. We need more people to show up so that the things I experience, the things other young people are experiencing, are preventable, but they need that one-on-one support. But we just finished our strategic plan, and we're getting ready to do a lot of systems change work. So watch out. Watch us in the news and your headlines, but we're about to shake some things up.
All right. I want to open it up, and just a quick housekeeping note. We're going to jump off the stream for those of us participating online at 9:45. But here in this room, we're going to stay with Charity all the way up through 10 o'clock. The book is for sale. She's brought some books. Y'all go get this book. It is truly incredible. It will shift your perspective, and if your perspective is already shifted, it'll shift it even further. So grab a copy of this book. So that'll be available up through 10 o'clock. But I want to open it up to the audience for any questions. All right, I see Mike, and then I see Lindy right here. Let me get Mike first. Ooh, my leg fell asleep.
And I only have a few copies with me, so if you're not able to get it here, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles.
And is it available at Octavia's bookshelf?
No, but we can make that
Let's
happen.
make sure it's available at Octavia's bookshelf, because that's our primary supporter group that we support.
Yes,
so I want to tee you up here,
Okay.
which is, you said, we need help.
Yes.
How do we help? How can we volunteer? Where can we
Yes.
give? Tell us what we can do.
Thank you. So you can go to casala.org, that's casala.org, and sign up to be a volunteer. Sign up for an information session so you can learn more about what the role is. We organize ordinary people to show up in an extraordinary way. You don't need to have any experience. We train you. We actually just finished a new revamp of our training that really centers the child and really prepares our CASA volunteers to show up in a trauma-informed and culturally responsive way for our young people. And so you have time, because our screen time, if you pull up that app, will tell you how much time you have that's being wasted on your phone or with other things.
That's so real.
But
That's
also
so
we
real.
train you and we pair you with someone that's going to support you all the way through and show you how to be there to show up for your child, your kiddo. And if you can't show up as a volunteer, donate to our organization so that we can continue supporting the volunteers we have and hiring the staff we need to support our kiddos.
And
casala.org, casala.org. Thank you so much.
And that was just going to be my question on the heels of that. Where can we donate? Is that where we donate
Same
as well?
website.
All right,
Yes.
awesome. All right, Lindy, you had a question. Bear with me. My leg fell asleep, and so I'm going to shake it out. No. We need it for the camera because we still got time there. So.
Hello, I'm Lindy.
Hello.
I have to say Dr. Charity Cole
Yes,
because I am
thank
proud of
you.
you. Okay.
Thank you.
So my question is, when you were talking about the care system, the people who are running that are part of the problem.
They're part of the problem.
It seems to me that there were no checks and balances there. They were just running the system. First of all, what do you think? What do you suggest for us to do? Because we have to check the system as well. And a lot of people don't ask questions. They say, oh, I need this, okay. Yeah. And they don't check those systems. What can we do individually, and what have you seen? Like, what have you been doing as far as CASA LA to check that?
That is a great question. And when we think about systems change work, it happens at the systems level, but also the organizational level and the individual level. And as an individual and a leader, someone that works in these spaces, the very first thing you can do is check your bias. I check my bias every single day because I also have bias, and ask myself, how am I showing up in these spaces? Am I pushing my own agenda and my own thoughts and assumptions on people, or I'm really listening to learn? And the best leaders are learners. But then if you work in the system, whether you're a social worker, you're leading an organization, you're a police officer, whoever, the system doesn't work unless we agree to implement their laws and policies. So if we show up to work and say, I don't think that's right, and we question everything versus just doing the job we were told to do, and we resist things. Like, I came into CASA and I said, I'm not doing it that way. No, ma'am, that's not what I'm doing. Or that's wrong, or in questioning things and getting people to think and really stimulating thought. But I tell I told the leaders in this space that you get to show up to work and say no. You get to say that this is not how we're going to do things. We go into these roles as CEOs and executive directors and social workers or whoever, and we don't question the policies that exist, even in the organization. We go to the policy and say, okay, this is how we need to do things, not knowing that policy was written in 1960 or 1939. And as leaders of organizations, we have the ability, forget what the law is, the organizational policies are trash. And so we get to go in and say, we need to update these policies. We need to make sure that they're up to date and current and they reflect the time that we're in. that we can truly respond to our young people. So I would encourage you all, whether you sit on a board of directors, whether you work in an organization, to say, what's our policy on how we support people that are experiencing domestic violence? Do we say that they weren't able to help their child because they allowed them to be in a harmful situation? Or do we say that we need to really help this mom and the child and get them away from an abusive relationship versus separating the child because of failure to protect? Our rules say that you failed to protect your child, even though you ran away from a domestic, from an abuser and tried to get your child out of this situation, or whether, even if you stayed, we don't say keep the family together, that's help them heal, we separate you. And so now we're questioning these policies, we're questioning our roles in perpetuating harm, and it's okay to say no, it's okay to resist, and if we're all resisting, we're forced to not only change organizational policies, but legislation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions? I see two right here. Let me go this way.
I just want to shout out Dr. Jeanette Mann here. It's all her fault that I'm here. I love this woman so much.
I just wanted to say that All Saints Church Foster Care Project has been recruiting CASA volunteers for almost 20 years. We used to host quarterly a session where people could come to the church and learn about CASA, but after the pandemic, we haven't been opening up the church like that. But another way to, if you forget that email, go to allsaintschurchfostercareproject.org and say you're interested in volunteering, and someone will get in touch with you and will help you go through the process.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.